Good evening, everyone, from Brooks Falls in Katmai National Park, Alaska. My name is Mike Fitz, and I'm the media ranger here at Katmai National Park and Preserve. So for the next hour or so, I'm going to try to narrate some of the action that I see here at Brooks Falls. I'm not going to be monitoring the chat on explore.org, or I'm not going to be looking at anything that's sent to Katmai NPS at Brooks Camp, or on Twitter, excuse me. So I won't be answering questions directly, but I hope to be talking a lot about what I see along the river here over the next hour or so. So there will be, you enjoy the view, but also when I happen to see something up or down the river, I'll point the camera in that direction and try to discuss it with you. So sit back, relax, enjoy it like you would your favorite sporting event, and we will see what happens in the next hour or so. So the bear we're looking at right now is number 755. He's nicknamed Scare D Bear. Scare, letter D, Bear. He got that nickname when he was a pretty young bear because he was not really tolerant to the presence of people, not really tolerant to the presence of other bears too. As a young bear, he would come to the falls, but he would run away as soon as other bears happened to show up. Even now, he rarely approaches the side of the platform from time to time. After 10 p.m. Alaska time, you may see him come and use the side of the river near the Brooks Falls cam, because after those hours the platform is closed and there are no people on it. So he's an interesting bear to watch. We never really see him down river near the river mouth like some of the other bears that are here at Brooks Falls present right now. I'm going to take a moment to take a look downstream, way downstream, about as far as we can look from here. I'm not sure if we're going to get it in view. It's going to be pretty close, though. To zoom in through some trees. There's been a female with cubs hanging down on that gravel bar that you can see through the trees, and it's probably a little bit out of focus. But that most likely is number 132. She had 3 spring cubs last year, and she's returned this year with 3 yearling cubs. I think a few of you got a good look at her yesterday when she happened to walk up underneath the Brooks Falls camera. So within my line of sight, I can see that family way downriver. You can see another bear walking into view way down there as well. So we have one family, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 other bears in view. It's one of the things that I really love about Brooks Falls is that this time of the year I can look downstream and sometimes see a dozen bears. The most I've ever seen from this spot within my line of sight is 12. This is the bear that many of you are well familiar with. She had a wolf snare around her neck late last July, and we were successful in removing that. So it's really gratifying to see her as a healthy bear back this year. There's been a lot of salmon in the river over the past 2 or 3 days. So the bears are really satiated. They're coming down and they're feeding, but they're being fairly selective in actually what they're eating. 854 and eats the rest since there's so much food available. And you can see how slowly and deliberately she's actually eating this fish. That's another indication that she's probably fairly full. Try to get a slightly closer view here. That's about as far as I can zoom in. Definitely taking his time with this fish. Trying to get all those little choice pieces out. Just like some people like to lick their plate after a tasty dessert. So 755 just caught a fish on the far side. Take a look at him. We'll see how he ends up chowing down on this. He's a little further away than the other bears. So he ate the head first, or the top of the head, so he's going straight for the brain. Didn't pull the skin off right away. Now he's tearing into the skin and the belly. The belly meat does contain a lot of fat, and we often see the bears eat that part of the fish if they're going to leave the rest of the flesh behind. They almost always tear the belly off. It looks like he's also trying to get every little last piece of skin off. And he's finished with that fish. It seems wasteful maybe from our perspective. But the bears, again, they're focused on calories. If they can afford to catch a lot of fish, and look, he has another one right now, then they're not going to eat the whole thing. There's no sense wasting space in your belly with bones, with the entrails that maybe aren't as nutritious as other parts of the fish. .747 in front of me. He looks like he's thinking about going fishing again, and there he goes right back into the jacuzzi. That's a really tough place to stand. Ranger Roy and I put a video on YouTube of us walking around in the falls, talking about how bears fish in different places. And right at the edge of the jacuzzi there, the force of the water really wants to push you away. So 747, he's so massive that he can easily sit there and resist the force of the water. If you see younger bears in this spot, it can be much more difficult for them. While I was saying that too, he ended up catching a fish, taking a bite out of it, and then letting it go. So that must not have been one that he preferred. We often wonder here if the bears can maybe smell the eggs within a female salmon. So maybe if they catch a salmon, they might pick it up, they might taste it, they might smell it and say, well, if that's a boy, oh, I'm going to throw it back. And if it's a girl, maybe I'll keep it. Now, we don't know that for sure. But with their sense of smell being, probably maybe 3 or 4 orders of magnitude greater than ours, it wouldn't surprise me if they could differentiate between a male salmon and a female salmon just by the way they smell. Now there's a lot of fish in that jacuzzi right now. He's probably feeling them against his body. He's very full. The bears, they can't see into the water there. It's just bubbles. It looks like a rapidly boiling water, really like a rapidly boiling jacuzzi. So their vision into the water is nil, but they can feel a lot of the fish bumping against them. If he was really hungry, he would be actively, you could see him twitching with his arms. You would see him put his face into the water a lot more. When a salmon bumps up against them and they want to try to catch it, they'll try to pin it to the ground right in front of them and then grab it with their mouth, or they'll actually pin it to their body with their paws and then grab it with their mouth. So still only 747 closest to me, and the jacuzzi, and 755 on the far side of the falls. A few bears still downstream. We got 409 bead nose walking towards the back to them. I don't think they're going to move anytime soon, knowing what I know about the female. Look at a raven down here that's found a salmon. The ravens definitely seem to be dominant over the gulls here. They'll waltz right up to a salmon carcass, push the gulls out of the way. The gulls seem to avoid them. There's a dead salmon on the water there, but it doesn't look like a bear has actually torn into it. The birds, especially the scavenging birds like ravens, like gulls, have a really hard time breaking through the skin of an adult salmon. The bears are really vectors that allow the energy from these fish, the calories from these fish, to be spread throughout the ecosystem so early in the salmon run. Otherwise, these birds like the gulls and the ravens, the magpies, they would have to wait several more weeks, if not a couple of months, along the Brooks River here before they gain access to the energy that salmon provide. So that raven's going to work on it for a while. If he can't break through the flesh, he or she, if that raven can't break through the flesh, it'll peck the eyes out, it'll eat the eyes, and then it'll peck at the gills and pull those out. But the salmon flesh is really, really tough. It gives you an idea of just how strong the bears are, because they can peel the skin away extremely easily, almost like they don't have to think about it. When food is really abundant as well, the ravens will cache salmon throughout the forest. Oh, and it looks like maybe it just pulled out a hunk of eggs. I think that's what it was. It just flew right underneath me. And it's going to be out of the camera's line of sight. I can see it out of the corner of my eye. But it's sitting up on a tree and it's eating the eggs. We still have 409 moving towards the falls. She might go to the lip, and we'll watch her if she does that. On the far side, though, I know some of you who were watching the cam before I went live, we're looking at this pair on the river. The one that's up in the bank is number 410. She's a very large adult female, maybe the biggest adult female that we have along the river. And the one sitting in the water right next to her is number 856, and he's probably the most dominant male along the river. 410 is probably in estrus or going through an estrus cycle. 856 has been following her for at least 10 days, if not a little bit more than that. I have to check my notes, but it was late June when I first noticed him following her. Courting between bears can be an extended process. It can sometimes take a week or more, like it is in this case. It may not be the right time for 410 to mate, even though she may smell receptive to 856. Perhaps she's just not quite used to his advances. Males have to guard access to the female though, and that's what he's been doing over these past 10 days. He really hasn't let her out of his line of sight. Even if she did get out of his line of sight, he can still smell her, he can still find her. So these female bears, when they're in estrus, it almost seems like they're harassed by the males. They really can't run away because the males will be able to smell them. But 856 is sacrificing maybe a little bit of weight gain right now because he's not fishing nearly as much as 747 or some of these other bears, because he wants to mate with number 410. People will often ask us too, where do the bears sleep? Where do they go to sleep? Do they sleep in the same spots day after day? Not usually, but they do revisit areas that they feel comfortable and secure, just like a person would. 410 will often sleep on the beach down at the mouth of the Brooks River. And she'll also sleep in that spot right on the far bank. There's, I think, a lot of screenshots of her from last year sleeping just in that exact same spot. Ranger Gene and I this spring went over to that spot to investigate, to see how just how comfortable that looked. And it's actually a lot of rocks. It looks like it's dirt, but it's probably half dirt and half not so round virtually anywhere. But I don't think I would be laying down in that spot. It does not look nearly as comfortable as 410 is making it out to be for now. I'm going to pan back towards the cams, looking downstream. It seems like a lot of the bears have moved out of my line of sight there. We've got 409 going to the lip here, so we'll get a really good look at her fishing. In the lip, she's going to wait and not move. That's a precarious position. You have the force of the water flowing against you, and then you have this 4 to 8 pound fish flying at your face. So the skill involved in catching fish jumping into your mouth, to me, is quite remarkable. Imagine throwing a 5 pound bag of flour at your face and catching it with your teeth. I mean, that's essentially what these bears are doing. The fish weigh between 4 and 8 pounds. It's a practice skill. Takes them a while to get good at it. As a young sub-adult bear, maybe around 2.5 years. So she's an old hood, knows exactly when to make her move. She lets the fish do the work for them, or for her. We'll take a look at how she high grades this fish. When the bears eat the fish, it's probably a very painful process for the fish. Bears don't kill their prey before they start to consume it. They only subdue it. So you can see that the fish is flapping, it's struggling, it's still trying to get away. This is, I mean, it has to fight. It has to fight for its life. Sometimes they do get away, so it's worth their while. It just ate the brain out of it. So it's a little bit past the half-hour point of my narration of Brooks Falls today, so I'm going to reintroduce myself. My name is Mike Fitz, and I'm a ranger here at Katmai National Park and Preserve. I'm standing at Brooks Falls, which is one of the best places in the world to see brown bears, and they come here specifically to fish for salmon, fatten up after that long winter and lean spring of weight loss. We're watching an adult female here, number 409. She's nicknamed Bead Nose. She just caught a fish on top of the falls, and now she's selecting for the fattiest parts of it. So now she's going back to the brain. It looks like she wants to try to pull a little bit more out of that head, a little more calories. And she's done with that carcass. So that'll be left to the scavengers, the gulls, the magpies, the ravens. She's right back at it. You can see 755 up at the top right corner of your view, chowing on another fish. 409 looking for another one to leap right at her face so she can catch that 5-pound sack. 747 sort of enjoying the bubble bath that he's in, catching a fish when he feels like it because there's so many in the water. So there you go, another great example of the skill it involves, catching those fish on the lip. So that fish kind of flapped around, gave her a little bit of a struggle and got away. I don't think that would happen if she was hungrier. We're going to take a break and move away from the falls for just a little bit because our courting pair has gotten up on the bank on the far side. And we'll see if they move up this way. If they do move up this way, that'll send, I think, a cascade of effects through the falls area because the other bears here aren't as dominant as 856. So that'll be interesting to watch. It goes and how other bears react to his presence. So they're just on the other side of that willow on the island. .410 is just below the willow right now, and 856 you can see moving towards her. Okay, so now they're on the move. One of the camera operators for the Falls Cam described 410 as being in a food coma because he had eaten so much fish, and that's probably an apt description. Again, you can see 856 tailing her, investigating every place that she happens to go. 747 now, I'm going to zoom out real quick. He's definitely keyed in on the movements of 856. So he's paying attention to that bear. Can't really say what's running through his mind, but he knows that 856 is more dominant than him. He knows that he often gets displaced by 856, that 856 is a potential threat to him physically. So 747 is going to watch his movements very carefully and probably avoid him if 856 comes much closer. As they work their way upstream, we have 755 still on the far side. Seems like he's noticed that courting pair walking upriver as well. He's kind of turning his head back in that direction. Still trying to fish though. Now they're not going to avoid 410. 410 goes right now, 856 goes. You can see 755, he's leaving the falls right now. He doesn't want to establish who's more dominant than one another. So bears. Now 856 seems to have taken notice of 747. We'll see if he comes over and challenges him. Seven 747 likely wants to avoid 856. Again, 747's on the right. 856 is standing on the left. .856, since he's a very dominant bear, he seems fond of reminding other bears just where they stand in the hierarchy. He often will come over, challenge a bear, almost it seems like to put them back in their place, to say, hey, I'm the boss, you need to remember that. On the far side of the river, again, if you're just joining us, is a courting pair of bears. The one standing without the fish right now is number 856. He's an adult male, very dominant bear here at Brooks Falls. The one that's standing near the rock eating a fish is number 410, one of the larger females here. Now 410 just took a nice long nap. We'll see how much of this fish that she actually eats. She's probably eaten a lot of fish today because there's been a very high number of salmon at the falls. 410 will fish virtually anywhere along the river. She has an advantage over some of the bears that are not tolerant of the presence of people because she doesn't mind being at the bridge fishing for salmon near large groups of people. And she doesn't mind being up here at Brooks Falls fishing with all the other really large males that are here. So bears at Brooks River that are what we call or are described as human habituated, they're probably at an advantage over those other bears that aren't tolerant of our presence, that aren't habituated to our presence. And that's why it's really important, if you have the opportunity to come and visit Brooks Camp and Katmai National Park, that you're giving all bears space, not only for safety considerations, but we need to give bears room to move about and go about their business. Because even a person standing in certain places may displace a bear from a really important resource that it needs to survive. So 409 on the lip here again. She's caught several fish since she's been up there. If you're able to watch the live chat yesterday with Ranger Roy and Ranger Troy Hammond, who is the park's chief of natural resources and cultural resources, we talked a lot about salmon. He specifically brought Troy into the live chat to talk about salmon because he's a salmon expert. And we did talk about how, you know, the salmon jump the falls and they sort of need to jump right at the boiling line where the water comes back up after it has dipped from, you know, it plunges over the falls, dips down underneath, and then shoots right back up. And you can watch where the salmon are jumping, and they're almost all of them are jumping right at that boil line. They need that extra little bit of momentum that the water gives them to make that leap of the falls. And the falls is about 6 feet high, so it's no small feat for those fish. There's probably about 30 other people on the wildlife viewing platform with me right now, and nearly 100% of them are focused on 409. Try to get that shot of a bear catching a salmon leaping in its mouth right before the bear clamps down on it is one of the sort of iconic photographs of national parks and really wildlife all across the world. So when people come here, they're always very eager to try to get that photograph. It's not as easy as it looks, but on nights like this, when there's a lot of salmon jumping at the falls, the chance of success of getting that photograph is much higher. In the jacuzzi, 747 again. On the far side, facing away from us, near the rock, is 410. And standing on the far side of the river, on the other side of 410, is 856. 747 for a while kind of sat near the island after 856 came over. And watched 856 to see if 856 was going to challenge him, maybe push him away from the falls, but 856 I guess is more interested in fishing right now, so 747 made his way back to the jacuzzi. Both of those bears are very, very good at fishing in the jacuzzi. Even if there are no salmon jumping the falls, there's almost always fish sort of churning in that whirlpool down there. So it's a very successful spot for bears who know how to fish there. And it's, for dominant males, it may be one of the more preferred spots, if not the most preferred spot. I'm looking up and downstream right now. The only bears that I happen to see are the 4 that are in view of the cam right now. But there are about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. About 35 gulls that are here. When bears aren't fishing, there really are no gulls here. Most of the gulls that you're seeing are glaucous-winged gulls, but we'll talk about those later when we don't have the opportunity to watch 409 eat her fish again. So she seems to be starting kind of to eat her fish in the same spot that she did before, going straight for the brain. I've often wondered too if bears eat their fish in a certain order. Certain bears go for the belly first, they go for the skin first, or they go for the brain first. So maybe that's something for a few of you fanatic bear camp fans to pay attention to. You get a good look at 409 beadnose, maybe you can jot down what she eats first, see if there's any pattern involved. You can see she's really taking her time with that fish. peeling the skin off bit by bit, gingerly holding on to it with her claws. Now she just tore the belly meat off. I can see a hunk of salmon roe hanging out. You can see that the fish is still actually flapping. It's not alive by this point, but her claws are actually stepping right on its brain, and I do suspect that that pressure probably sends some electrical shocks through what's left of the fish's nervous system by this point, and maybe that's why it causes it to flap. We'll zoom out, we'll take a look around, see what else is going on. Still three bears just at the base of the falls. Downriver seems pretty quiet for the moment. It can almost seem counterintuitive that there aren't more bears here right now. I wish I could just show you how many fish are in the water. Maybe I'll try to do that. 747 just caught another one and he dropped it, so that must not have been a one that he preferred. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to see it through the camera here. Probably would have to put a bit of a polarized lens on this to see into the water itself. But there are salmon streaming almost constantly up to the base of the falls. I'll try to get them in view here. You can see them right, I think, right now. So there are just masses of fish almost everywhere here. So why wouldn't there be more bears? I think the answer to that actually is that the bears are full. They don't really need to be here because because they already have full bellies. So they'll come back when they have some more room in their stomach. But sometimes when we have less salmon at Brooks Falls and in Brooks River, we might have more bears fishing at Brooks Falls because it takes the bears a longer time to get a full meal. And bears can eat a lot of fish. 856, for example, I watched him last year over the course of several hours catch and eat 18 whole salmon. He wasn't high grading that day. He wasn't just eating the skin and the brains. He was eating the whole fish. And one of these fresh sockeye salmon out of the ocean likely contains about 4,500 calories. So that day, I mean, he took in almost 90,000 calories. Just an amazing amount of energy that they can put into their stomachs each and every day. And every one of these bears, again, 409, that's standing on top of the falls, still taking her time with that fish. And 410, who's near the rock, taking her sweet time with that fish too. And it's about 8:30 local time, so 8:30 Alaska time. And originally I had said that I would only stick around for an hour or so, but I can stay with you until 9 p.m. So I hope you're enjoying the play-by-play and the narration that I'm giving you. My name is Mike Fitz, and I'm a park ranger at Katmai National Park and Preserve. We're standing at Brooks Falls right now. We're looking at 4 bears fishing and a lot of salmon in the water. From time to time you might be able to hear some of the gulls calling. Most of these gulls are glaucous wing gulls. If you see any with black wingtips that are a bit smaller, those are going to be mew gulls, like a cat mews, M-E-W. The gulls certainly live in a feast or famine world. They're not going to be here in the wintertime. They have to migrate to other places where they can find access to food year-round. So 409 used her paw there to kind of guide the fish a little bit into her mouth. You can see the blood streaming out of the salmon. It's trying to fight, but bears are so strong that the salmon often can't break away. Body fat on brown bears probably has a net positive effect on their rate of reproductivity. Especially bears that have access to salmon, these populations generally reproduce at a slightly higher rate. Oh, when she let that one go, she wasn't super hungry. But bears in areas where there are salmon probably reproduce at a higher rate, have larger litters. So without these fish, Katmai's bear population, the density of bears here would be much, much smaller. We'd still have bears in Katmai even without salmon, because bears are adaptable. They can learn to exploit new food resources quite quickly. If a food resource doesn't happen to show up, like a run of salmon, then they'll try to look for something else. But without salmon, we certainly would not have large gatherings of brown bears in Katmai like we do now. So while 409 chows down on her fish, we'll take a look over here. We'll go back to 747. He's moved out of the jacuzzi to catch, or to eat his catch. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. Many gulls will hover just out of a bear's reach. They're looking for any leftover scraps of salmon that drift downstream. The bear's going after any of the gulls really, or birds for that matter. Sometimes they'll chase them somewhat playfully. Sometimes if it seems like they get a little bothered by the close proximity of a gull, they may hop charge the gull and chase it away. But for the most part, they just ignore the birds. They know that the birds aren't competitors for space or for food, so there's not much of a reason for them to chase them or to try to eat them either. I mean, the birds are pretty quick, so they can easily hop out of the way of a lunging brown bear. I also suspect too that the bears would have a hard time swallowing all those feathers because they're not going to pluck the bird before they happen to eat it. Watching the salmon jump the falls is one of my favorite things to do. The strength and endurance it takes these fish to migrate thousands of miles in the ocean, to migrate into fresh water without feeding, and surviving here for sometimes many more weeks is quite amazing. We'll try to zoom in a little bit closer to where they usually make their landing. And we'll see if we can get a really good look at the fish when they hit the water. Because when they're flying through the air, their tails are still flapping, but when they hit the water, they need to accelerate even more, and they need to hit another gear really before they can break free really from the waterfall. And we'll come back to that in just a little bit because we have a little bit of an interaction over here. Just 410 moved a little bit closer. 856 moved a little bit closer to 747 too. 747 again is on the right. He's walking away. And 856 again is trying to reassert his dominance. And you can see that 747 really didn't want anything to do with him. .747's just behind the willow, standing there looking at 856. 856 is on the island here. We'll see if he decides to mark any of the trees or do any displays that show 747 that he's a dominant animal. Bears like to mark their presence in territories to let other bears know just who's been around. You can see a nice stiff-legged cowboy walk going on right there. That says, hey, I'm big, I'm bad, I'm dominant. I can't tell if he's urinating right now, but male bears will do that a lot when they cowboy walk. Rubbing himself on the grass, leaving his scent behind. 747, he's still over there, he's still watching this. Now 856 is coming up to the tree. Yeah, and he's going to rub on the tree. He's going to mark his scent on that tree. They will rub on trees when they're itchy, but they do it as well as a display, and again to mark their presence in an area, and to also demonstrate to other bears that they're dominant. And 856 occasionally is still looking over at 747. 747 is just standing there, still looking in his direction. When bears encounter one another, They're competing over food or access to females. The quote-unquote winner of the challenge is the one that breaks off the encounter, unless it's over a specific spot or a specific female, and that female's stationary. So 856, he's the one who broke off this encounter. He ended it. 747 stood there and watched them end it. When you see bears at Brooks Falls encounter one another, it's in many cases not the one that stays and watches the other bear move away that's the winner. It's the bear that moves away that's the quote-unquote winner of the encounter, unless that bear is trying to displace him from a fishing spot. And over the past several years, I've been taking notes on the bear interactions that I see, and I have not witnessed an interaction between 856 and another bear where 856 was displaced. So he's clearly the most dominant animal on the river. Even the rangers get out of the way of him. Another bear we haven't seen so far this evening on the far side, and that's number 128. She's fairly recognizable, very large ears, fairly blonde fur color, straight facial profile. This is another adult female, and she'll also fish on the lip of the falls. I'm going to try to turn and see if we can get a look at 747. He's still sitting in the water. Still looking at the falls, but has not made it move in that direction. So he's right behind that willow. In case you're wondering what species of willow that is, because I know everyone is. That's a felt leaf willow. Salix velascensis. $856 back to fishing, 409 on the lip back to fishing, 410 standing near the log near the middle of the falls fishing, 128 on the far side making a decision about where she wants to go. You may hear some other voices, you may hear feet stomping, and that's where the other people on the wildlife viewing platform right now. There's a lot of fish jumping, some of them hitting 409. Like I mentioned before, imagine trying to catch a 5-pound bag of salmon thrown at your face. 5-pound bag of flour. Catch it in your mouth. I mean, that's what these bears are doing. Let the fish come to you, though. That seems to be one of their mottos. Let the fish do the work. Good things come to those who wait. Oh, 409 is fishing over there. Still watching 747 to my right. He's still sitting in there. I thought he was going to make a move back to the falls, but he's not. So we'll take a break looking at the falls for a moment, because if we look way downstream, and we're going to have to look through the trees again. But we have a mom and 3 yearlings down there. And that's probably 132 and her 3 yearlings. This is her first known litter, at least as far as we know. For all the female bears that are here, adult females, it's possible that they could have had cubs in the past and then lost them when they were traveling to Brooks River. So we don't really know for sure how many litters that they've had. We can only record what we see. But 132 down here, as far as we know, this is her first litter. The mother that has 4 spring cubs, if we were lucky enough to see her on the cams yesterday, and she may have made a really brief appearance today. I'm not sure if the lower river cam was able to catch her. That bear, number 402, this is her 5th litter, actually. And the bear that's walking in front of the family right now is, it looks like another young female, a single female. And I could be wrong in my identification of this one, but it could be number 201. If you are, if you have downloaded the ebook of the Brooks River Bears, you can look her up in the adult female section. And 747 just spooked a bunch of fish right down below us here. They're done boiling, but they're still surging through the water right down below me. I think everyone really around here celebrates the return of the salmon. I know the people who make their livelihood based on salmon, the people who work in the canneries, the people who fish for them out in the Bering Sea, and of course everyone who enjoys wildlife as well. We all celebrate the return of the salmon. .856 eating a fish on the far side. He hasn't been spending as much time fishing as some of the other bears because he's been following 410 so much. So we'll see how much of this fish he actually eats. So we ate a good bit of that fish, but he still left much of it behind, and it's just sitting right at the base of his feet. There must have been a bear on the hill behind me because a lot of people just kind of left the platform to go take a look, but I can't quite see what they're seeing. Ranger Roy's here. He's on his time off, but he's encouraging everybody to come back to the platform. We can reduce our impacts on the bears by consolidating in predictable places like the wildlife viewing platforms, and when we string ourselves out along the walkway then if we can form a more imposing barrier to the bears. So we really do try to emphasize to everyone to consolidate on the wildlife viewing platforms. While we have these 3 bears fishing at the falls, 747 moving back into the river. And we still have the family, 132 and her yearling cubs, far downstream.